This call is being recorded.
Welcome to Your Daily Writing Habit. If you are writing a book or thinking about it, or maybe you've started writing your book but you need some help getting it done, you are in the right place. Good morning. I'm your host, Christine Whitmarsh. If you're looking for me online, look for Christine Inc., I-N-K, like that stuff we write with. Each day, I am sharing with you the writing habits I've learned over my 21 years as a ghostwriter, book coach, and author. I have found that three things in particular have a huge impact on your success as an author, and they can turn someone who barely sees themselves even as a writer into a published book author. Those three things, my pillars here on the show, are writing fundamentals, productivity, and mindset habits. And once again, good morning, everyone. Here today, I'm so excited on Your Daily Writing Habit to talk about what it's like working with people with big visions is writer, entrepreneur Madeleine Wyke Silva. Here's more about Madeleine. Madeleine Wyke Silva, the creator of the 7-Figure Freedom Method, has a unique point of view on how to rapidly grow your vision, impact, and profits in a way that aligns the spiritual with the physical. As a rebel entrepreneur, warrior for freedom, and writer with big dreams, she knows what it's like to have a big vision and craving to make a big impact, but struggle with the execution. Picture this: a small town girl from Sweden at age 19 moving to a foreign country 10,000 miles from home with a dream of building a life out of 2 tiny suitcases. That same girl spent years hustling to high six figures and discovered the never-ending loop of stress, exhaustion, and endless demands. Until, at the age of 44, Madeleine decided to sell everything and start over. That single decision led her to the 7-figure freedom she's enjoying today. Madeleine's mission is to share this proven method with you to accelerate your business in ways that allow you to truly soar, expand your impact, and give you the freedom you crave. Welcome, Madeleine.
Oh, thank you so much, Christine. I love it. That was a fantastic intro.
Oh, cool. Yeah, so many things here. And you know what really struck me about your bio and also our recent phone call where we got to know each other was the thread that really connects our mutual clients, the people that you serve and the people that I serve respectively. And that's mainly why I wanted to bring you on the show today, so we can share what we've both learned from working with all those big vision people, and especially for the sake of my audience here, what authors listening today can learn from those big vision, big impact lessons. So that's an exciting thread.
Yes, I love that. And, those are the kind of people I love to hang out with. Big visions, big impact, and, the people that really have the guts and the message to transform the world. So I think a lot of you authors fall into that bracket, I'm imagining. And so, yeah, really excited to be chatting today.
Yeah, they do. And they inspire me every day. So I love what I do, and I can tell you love what you do. So let's go back in time. Let's start early in your personal story. I was really inspired by the 2 tiny suitcases moving from Sweden to here. So what were the main lessons you learned from your decision to just uproot from presumably the only place you ever knew and, with 2 tiny suitcases?
Yeah, so, I grew up in Europe, so I'm born in the French part of Switzerland, and then my parents were Swedish and moved us back to Sweden, so I grew up in Sweden. But I spent all my summers train hopping through Europe from the time I was 12 until I left when I was 19. And so I was a pretty avid traveler, even at the age of 19, when I decided to skip town and go from Sweden and landed in Haight-Ashbury in San Francisco, in California, and dove into the Grateful Dead scene a little bit. I was in the very tail end. It was 91, so it's been a while, but really amazing lessons. I think the biggest lessons I've learned from traveling and just taking those leaps of faith is, that the magic happens, right, when we don't have anything planned, and we in the moment, and we're able to embrace what is happening and really take advantage of the opportunities that show up. Sometimes we get too busy thinking that we know where we're going, what the plan should be, and we miss those magical opportunities where we really get to be in the flow of life and the flow of the people that we connect with and the opportunities that await us around the corner. And so I think the biggest thing about doing that big leap of faith of moving all the way to the San Francisco Haight-Ashbury district when I was 19 was just, looking back now, I can really say that I can do that over and over again, and I'm going to land on my feet. And I think that gives me a sense of freedom and also a sense of safety, because I know no matter where I'm going to end up, I'm going to figure it out, and I'm going to step up and learn from those pieces and learn from the experience that I came across. It was quite a colorful journey.
Yeah, and that's so inspiring about kind of like embracing the magic and not trying to plan every little thing. I'm like the total planner, so personally inspiring to me, and realizing that is when the magic happens. And it's kind of interesting, like the more parallel threads in our lives here, because I talk a lot about that in my memoir, The Power of the Curve, about embracing curves rather than trying to fight them, the curves that happen in your life. And kind of like similar to what you're saying, the more curves that you successfully embrace and find the value in and find the power in, the easier it is and the more fun it is. So then it gets to the point like where I am in my life now, where I seek out, curves that used to maybe be like stressful to me, as a younger person, but now it's just kind of like, oh, let me, jump outside my comfort zone and see what kind of trouble I can stir up here, because I know I'm going to be okay. I know. So I really, not just embrace the curves, but I actively seek them out, similar to what you're saying.
Yeah, I love that. Yeah, and my two tiny suitcases, since you were curious about that, I just have to say, which I think that your listeners are going to be excited to hear, there was two tiny suitcases, which one of them was filled with books, because I've been an avid reader and writer my whole life. And literally when I was a kid, the bookstore lady in my tiny little town that I grew up in Sweden knew me well, because I would save my money and my allowances, and then I would buy books. And so when I moved to California, the one thing that I couldn't leave behind was a certain number of books that I had to take with me.
That's an amazing story. You have two suitcases, and one of them just is all books. Oh my gosh, this is so inspiring. I love that. So flashing forward in your life to the point where you talked about, when you were working in a constant loop of stress and exhaustion, tell us about that, and, how that came about, and then really what lessons you learned from kind of being stuck in that loop of stress and exhaustion.
Yeah, so I grew up in a small business, and my dad was an entrepreneur in Sweden, which was quite unusual because I grew up in Sweden during socialism. And so he was one out of 7 small business owners in our town. And our teachers literally would write it on the walls. So I feel like in some ways I was destined to become an entrepreneur myself. And, I used to sell candy to the kids in the neighborhood out of a tent in my parents' backyard in the summer months. And so when I moved to California when I was 29, I started my own business. And I ended up getting fired from my job, actually, and that's how I started my business. And, I didn't have any money saved. I was literally on unemployment checks, and ended up moving in with my then boyfriend, now husband's little shack, bachelor shack, that had a drum set in the dining room rather than a dining room set, and sheets for the window but none on the bed, and, the typical bachelor pad, right? Really bad. And that's where I started my little business. At the end of our bed, a tiny little 1-bedroom shack, and, on a laptop and a cell phone and the yellow pages. And, and I built this business, and it rapidly grew over the next 3 years. It doubled every year. And all of a sudden I was in this machine, and I kind of lost sight of my vision. I had a very clear vision that seems almost impossible to reach, which was, I wanted to make $100,000, $10,000 a month. And I made that happen within 9 months, and then it just kind of snowballed from there. And I wasn't, after a while, I was just in the grind of it all. I was just trying to keep all the plates spinning. I was working really hard. I was putting in 65-hour days. 65-hour weeks, and not days, hopefully, right? But 65-hour weeks.
Time space continuum.
And by the time, exactly. By the time the weekend came around, I was exhausted, sitting on the couch with like, don't even talk to me attitude, and and I was wiped out. And so I spent a good 10 years almost working like that, and feeling really exhausted and stressed. And as far as I what I really learned from all of that was, one, as visionaries, as big visionaries, when we get stuck in the doing, we really lose sight of our vision. And we lose sight of why we are really here and what we really want to accomplish. And we just get stuck in the day to day. We lose our inspiration, we lose our drive, we lose our energy. And that's really what the burnout cycle comes from. Yes, it's exhausting to work that much, but if you really tapped into your vision and you're having a lot of fun, working a little bit more, it's not the end of the world because you're driven by your passion. But when you lose sight of that, then it all becomes drudgery. And so now, I see a lot of entrepreneurs and visionaries getting stuck in that in their businesses and in their lives in general. And my whole goal of the work that we do is really helping this visionary to tap back into their passion and vision, and then building their business around that, rather than them trying to contort into somebody else's idea of success of how it should be done, but really starting with their vision and who they really are as a starting point, and so that everything aligns from there. And that's kind of the business that I redesigned for myself now, where I only work 3-day work weeks, and I have a lot of spaciousness to really tap in to my vision and my inspiration, so that I really get to create the best work that I possibly can into the world.
That's and it's an interesting point you made about how, like, just if you're embracing your vision versus, just being kind of stuck in a machine, the same work week, I would imagine like a 65-hour work week is not necessarily bad. It can look completely different just based on the inner drive and the intrinsic motivation. So I just look at it as like a novel where it's like a 65-hour work week as the happy utopian novel, or a 65-hour work week as the dystopian horrible horror novel. And it's like the same amount of hours, but just based on what's driving you, it can just be a completely different story.
Yeah, absolutely. That's exactly it. And I think, and sometimes I just feel like, society or even business mentors or other kind of experts and people that we're supposed to listen to, that we think maybe have a better idea of what it should look like. And sometimes we listen a little too much. And so we lose sight of who we really are and what we really want, and trying to fit into this box of what it should look like, and thinking that this is the only way we can be successful. And I think that, when we really tap into who we truly are, our own intrinsic value, and we really tap into our own unique genius and bring that forth into the world, that's when the true magic happens. That's really when the momentum starts rolling and things really starts happening in a much bigger way, because we've been true to ourselves. And when that starts rolling, it gets really fun. And like I said, then it's not drudgery, working a lot or putting your time in, because there's this magic momentum that's happening, and that's pulling you forward.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. So speaking of stories, you described yourself in your bio as a writer with big dreams. So tell me about Madeleine, the writer, and when this began in your life, and the kind of things you like to write, and everything about writing.
Yeah. So, I wrote from an early age, and I think in the beginning I was mostly just writing to express myself. And I find that I like writing because it allows me to think my thoughts out and my feelings out. So I'm definitely an introvert at heart, and so speaking on video, doing video, or, I actually love podcasting because I get to just sit here and kind of talking to a mic. I love that. And so I have my own podcast too. And so I do love that piece as well. But I find that writing really gives me an opportunity to think things through in a much deeper way, and notice things that normally I might have brushed over in my day-to-day life. I don't slow down enough. And so that sense of writing it out has been really profound in my life. And so that's probably most of what I've done. And I do this both in business and personal life, really kind of more as a personal process, I would say, my writing of getting the pieces out of me so that I can see them on paper and in black and white, and feel deeply into my experiences and be able to integrate and move forward and take making better decisions because it's clearer to me what's happening.
Well, such amazing benefits of writing that I talk about quite a bit here. It's because I always thought it's really hard. If everything's in your head, you think you have clarity on it and you think it's making sense. Well, if that's the case, then why are you still struggling with it? So it's so important. So I always talk about the importance of journaling and self-awareness and, knowing ourselves as authors first, because the better we know ourselves, the more that clarity and power and impact will come through in our writing. So that really just, speaks to your point about all that, where, we need to get the puzzle pieces out onto the paper to make sense of them all. Huge benefit of writing.
Absolutely. Yeah, I feel that strongly. And I find it too super helpful in my business. Like when I'm writing to really connect with my audience and really getting my message out there of who we are and what we do in my company, I feel like writing, I find the words easier. I can describe things in a real life experience that kind of bring people into the story and include them in a much bigger way than I feel like I do when I'm speaking. And sometimes I have 15 thoughts coming through at once and I fumble over my words, right, when you talk sometimes, but I feel with writing, I get an opportunity to kind of think about all 15 of those thoughts and then writing down what makes sense, Yeah.
It's a great gift that we all have here. So tell me about next. I'm interested in the life stories and experiences in your life that really have fed this passion you seem to have for the idea of expansion versus settling for smaller things in life. So where did this thinking come from? Of course, how does it affect your writing? And it seems like your writing gives you an opportunity to do it. But I just want to talk about for a minute this concept of expansion versus settling for living small in your life.
Yeah, I don't know exactly where it came from. I feel sometimes I probably came into this world that way, but I remember being a kid and teacher or parents would say, well, you can have either or, and you can have this or this. And I always thought to myself, well, why can't I have both? Why can't I have both? That was always my thinking. It felt like limited to me to have either or. And so I had a sense of the abundance in the universe and what's possible and what's available to us. And I think for me, it's always been an opportunity to feel all of that. I always say that I want to leave it all on the table. When everything is said and done, I'm signing off. I want to make sure that I left it all on the table. And so I think that it's a part of my philosophy on life and how I approach my life is to really step into the big things and do the things that might be a little scary or do the things that, I might not be able to see around the blind corner, but I probably gonna go anyway, to see what happens and to see the opportunities that await me on the other side of that corner and stepping into what's truly possible. And I just, so I always lived a little bit outside of the box and wanting to push the envelope and see what I'm capable of. There was something that was exciting about that inspires me and makes me feel alive when I'm really tapping into the bigger passions of expanding and also feeling like you get to have a bigger impact. Because in the end of the day, I think it's really important to make a difference in the world and having an impact on the people around us and really sharing our gifts, our intrinsic gifts, the gifts that only we can give, and to really put all of that out there in the world as much as possible. So I think that's the thing that I'm always possibly chasing in my life. And also, I believe that it's been moments in my life where I did settle for small, or I settled for comfortable, and how that made me feel was over time uninspired, disconnected, lost, bored, and so I never had that when I really reached for what was possible, and the expansion always felt exciting, fun, a little risky, But also the rewards were so big that came back that it became natural for me to go there.
Totally feeling that, the curves in that over and over again. So, and we talked about the clients we work with. So what lessons have you learned from all these big thinkers, like things that maybe you wouldn't have figured out on your own in life, but you're working with a client and you're like, oh my God, just like either something the person said or maybe just the example that they set, you're like, wow, this like really teaches me something powerful about life that I want to try to emulate in my own life.
Yeah, I mean, one of the things I love about working with big visionaries is that they build it out of thin air, right? They first they see it, they see what's possible, they get it on a in a gut feeling, an intuitive level, or a spiritual way that can see what it is they want to create before it's in physical form. And so that has always been incredibly inspiring to me. And I have this thing that I've had since I was a child. So when people share their vision with me, I naturally will start seeing all the steps I need to take to get there. Like it's like a domino for me. The domino chips just start standing up, and I can see all the steps I need to take to get to where I want to go. And so I get incredibly inspired listening to people speak about their vision. And to me, it all seems possible because I instantly see the dominoes and how we just need to tip the dominoes, and it's really smooth and easy to get there. And so that was really inspires me with working with big visionaries. And the other piece of that is there's some amazing people in the world, right? There's some amazing people in the world that really have gifts that I find that a lot of times our most precious gifts that we bring to the world, many times we ourselves take them for granted because it just comes so natural to us. This is just a thing that we are good at. And so we think it doesn't, it's not that important or it's not that special. And I find a lot of visionaries, oftentimes downplay this big gift that I have. And so my passion is really to connecting with them and helping them build those visions into reality and really making that a possibility for them. Not just for them, but for the world and the ripple effect that it creates. And so when we tap into that gets really, really exciting. And so that's what just blows my mind working with visionaries and what they really want to, the impact that they want to make in the world.
Totally. And what strikes me, because I work with the same type of people, especially my celebrity clients, is it struck me from the beginning that these are just, I don't know if this is your observation, but these are the busiest human beings on the planet. And what's really funny is like, there will be people that would look at that and be like, oh my gosh, they have no work-life balance. They just like live their mission, they live their work, and they're just on fire for 24 hours a day. They must be exhausted, but they're not. And it's because speaking to your point about how they're being fed by their passion and their vision. And I just look and they just go, but they're healthy and they're happy and they're not exhausted. And it's kind of like what we were talking about, 65 hours in one scenario versus 65 hours in the other. So that's really the greatest lesson I've gotten from my celebrity clients is don't apologize for what work-life balance looks like for you. Don't apologize for what, quote unquote work looks like to you, because if it works for you, then it's working. And, maybe you're being fed differently than other people, because I think in the past I was apologizing for I love my work too, and I just want to work all the time. And people are just like, oh, you should take a vacation, and you should do this, and you should do that. And I think on my celebrity clients, it's just hey, if they're happy going all out, I don't need to apologize for being happy going all out.
Absolutely. I love that. I think that's so true, right? And like I said before, when you tap into your passion and you're really living your vision, there's a whole other level of energy fuse that you tap into that's never ending, it seems.
Yeah, that kind of like the endless infinite well of energy. I kind of picture that. And so these great lessons that you've learned from your big thinking clients and all the things we talked about, expansion and not settling for small, in your opinion, how could authors translate the average, not average, the extraordinary authors that listen to my show that are writing their books, and a lot of them are building author brands and writing multiple books. So how would you suggest that authors apply these lessons to their work and to their lives as authors?
Yeah, I mean, I think that anytime we can use story, right, to tell something or convey something, it allows people to kind of step into your circumstances and really look at it from your perspective. And, it's very captivating and exciting. And especially, if the reader can find a way of kind of seeing themselves in that story. And so utilizing those big long-term visions to really paint a picture and invite people into this alternate world that you are creating and envisioning, I think is incredibly powerful.
Well, right big, right? The big visions. Even, you kind of mentioned earlier in the conversation how you consider yourself a bit of an introvert. I think as writers, I think we all kind of consider ourselves that way, but it's so great that, if we're not going to be like, the Steve Jobs of the world or whatever, but as authors, we kind of can step into those shoes and we get to be big. We get to, create big worlds and big visions, from the comfort of our own home without having to address, thousands of people at a shareholder meeting and everything like that. It's just like we can kind of live the big vision life as authors through our words and imaginations. And I've always found that really exciting.
Super exciting. Yes, absolutely.
So finally, of course, given the theme of this show, habits, tell me, what are your best success habits, whether writing or life or otherwise?
Yeah, so my best success habits, I think, is to really find my rhythm, my personal rhythm. And so for a long time, I think I wasn't really honoring my introverted ways. And I oftentimes overextended myself and the amount of energy I had available for socializing or being around people. And that's when I was working all the time and kind of lost sight of where I was heading. Um, and why I also redesigned my work week now. I work 3 days a week. I get 4 days off, and creating that level of spaciousness, I think, is incredibly important for visionaries in particular, so that we actually can see the vision and feel into it. Because of course, the magic happens in the spaciousness. That's really where we tap into the bigger vision and see where we're going in a bigger way. So that's a really important piece for me. So finding my own rhythm of what works. And so I find that working in spurts works really well for me, working in short spurts. So that's why I work, intense for 3 days, and then I have 4 days off. And by the time Monday comes around and I'm about to start my work week again on Tuesday, I'm actually usually super excited to get back to work, and I'm excited and I have all these ideas and I'm ready to kind of jump in and get going. And so creating that kind of flow for yourself, whatever that might look like, but really honoring that has been incredibly important for my creativity and my inspiration and my vision. And the other thing that I do a lot of is really dividing tasks that are right brain versus left brain, and also batching my work. So I'm really big on figuring out, when am I doing what? So for example, if I need to, when I work with clients, usually, I only work with clients in certain hours. And so that creates a sense of momentum when I'm working with clients, where I'm kind of in the same flow of the energy and what I'm producing during those hours. And that really helps me to stay focused and be really on during those moments, as opposed to when I do maybe paying the bills or running the payroll for the company or doing some more of the linear numbers stuff, and not intermingle it. I find that has really helped me to be much more focused, really managing my energy more than my time in a way, where I find that if I manage my energy and how I utilize it to the best of my ability to accomplish the most important things first, then the time management becomes almost irrelevant, because I'm not fighting time anymore. I'm more aligned with energetically what needs to happen day to day. And part of that is splitting it from the right brain versus the left brain tasks, and also limiting transition times. So often in life, right, especially in our society these days, we talk about, it's almost like a badge of honor to be this crazy busy person and constantly rushing. And I found that and it oftentimes creates a lot of transition time. And most of the time when we have a transition time, we lose momentum, we lose focus, and there's an opportunity for negativity to start creeping in. We can get a little lost. What am I supposed to be doing next? And all of those things starts happening. And if you have lots of transitions throughout your day, you start losing a lot of productivity. And so I just minimize my transition times. I compartmentalize what I do when, and batch the work that I'm doing. And that's kind of like as far as my work day go. And of course, I do a tremendous amount. I meditate every day. I like waking up slow and getting to work a little bit later, start my calls a little bit later. So I have some spaciousness in the morning to kind of get into the day and tune in, do some yoga, do some meditation, and get ready. Those are some really important habits for me to manage my energy and really show up at my best when the day starts.
Totally feel that. And I'm kind of similar where, each of my days has a different rhythm and flow to it. Like, for instance, I actually only speak to people. I mean, of course, go out in public and speak to others, but I only am available to speak to, the other humans in my business on Mondays and Wednesdays. And people just, don't you want to just have business all the time? Mondays and Wednesdays are for talking. And then Tuesday I have, specific, rhythms that I do on Tuesdays, Thursdays. I mean, everything. And I have like a podcasting writing day, a podcasting recording day. So yeah, and it's very similar to what you're talking about. It's kind of like setting the vibe for the day. Am I creating? Am I, am I talking? Am I reacting? Am I problem solving? It's just, each day kind of has its own specific energy, and it kind of like, it has its own kind of like energetic, creative intention, I think. So really, agreeing with what you say there.
Yeah, that makes so much sense. It makes so much sense. See, I love that you're doing that naturally. I think that's kind of rare.
Well, I'm kind of obsessed with habits, as people know. Over 12, oh my gosh, I think I'm almost at 1,300 episodes of the show. I don't even know. I've been doing this podcast forever, and I'm totally obsessed with habits. And I have my non-negotiable ones, like you're talking about yoga and meditation. Those are also on my list. And for me, it's kind of weird. Like I'll schedule sometimes my entire day around physical movement, whether it's, training, because everybody listening to the show at this point knows that I like to play circus. I'm an aerialist. So, physical training is very important. So yeah, those non-negotiable habits that you're talking about as well. So we're in parallel yet again, Madeleine.
I love it. I know. I kind of knew that from the moment we talked on the phone last time. There was just this real beautiful synergy in connecting with you.
It is. This has been lovely. And where is the best place for people to learn more about you and your work and to connect with you?
Yeah, so I'm on Instagram at Madeleine Wyke Silva, and also on my webpage is sevenfigurefreedomclub.com, and both those places are a really good place to kind of find out more about me and what we're up to, and would love to connect.
Awesome. I will put those in the show notes. And thank you so much for being on the show today. This has been very enlightening and inspiring and all the things.
Yeah, really nice to connect with you. And thank you, everybody who was tuning in and listening. It was really great to just be here and share a little bit.
And speaking of all those people, thank you all for joining us here on Your Daily Writing Habit, where I am helping you write and finish writing an awesome book. Please drop by my Inc. Authors group on Facebook to connect with other authors and people like yourselves. And again, show notes, links, you guys know the drill by now. Until tomorrow, happy writing.